All right, Laura, it's all yours.
Okay, great. All right, thanks, Katie. Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first of 4 webinars on Adobe Acrobat Pro DC. This week's session is going to focus on the Create and Edit section in the Tools panel. So you can see I've got Adobe open here. I'm under Tools. So we're going to be focusing on this first row of icons, and we're going to be looking at first of all, create PDF, and you can actually see when I hover on it, it gives you a description of what it does. So that's what you'll see in your handout. Is we'll be looking at how to create a PDF, first of all, from any format. And I've given you 3 sample files. I've given you an Excel spreadsheet, a PowerPoint presentation, and a Word document. So we're going to look at how Adobe handles each of those. Then we'll be looking at how to combine files, and combining files basically allows you to take multiple files and combine them into a single PDF, which is referred to as a binder. Then we have organized pages. So we'll basically be looking at how, once you've created your PDF, how you can delete pages, how you can insert additional pages. Extracting pages will allow you to split up the PDF and rotate pages. And also in that section, I'll be looking at showing you what a bookmark is and how to add bookmarks. Edit PDF basically allows you to edit text and images in a PDF file. And then that section will also be looking at how to create headers and footers, adding watermarks, and creating a table of contents within your PDFs. Exporting PDFs, that's how do you take a PDF, an existing PDF, and export it to Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, or there's other programs as well you can export to. And then finally, we'll be taking a look at something called Scan and OCR, which basically allows you to take a scan of a document into a searchable PDF with selectable text. So you can take the scan and you can actually make it into a document that is you're able to edit. The one piece we will not be looking at today is the last one, the rich media, and that's used if you want to add audio, video, and interactive elements to your PDF. Now, the other thing I'm just going to draw your attention to is in this section, you'll notice beneath each of the items we're going to use, you will see the word open. But for rich media, you just see the word add. I'm just going to show you, there's a drop down here. If I click on that, you can see if I choose the word open, it actually goes to open a file. But now, actually what I wanted to do, sorry, not choose open, I wanted to choose add shortcut. If I choose add shortcut, it changes to the word open, and now I've actually added a shortcut over here. So this main panel gives you a description, gives you the sections, but this gives you shortcuts to the things that you maybe are going to use all the time. Now, I'm not actually going to use rich media, so when I hover on it, you can see I can add an X. So anywhere where you see the word open, it means it's already been added over here, and you can open the option directly by clicking the word open, or you can actually click on the actual icon. So we are going to start with the Create PDF, and there's a couple of ways you can create PDF. We're going to be looking first of all at this option. So when I click Create PDF, what it gives me now is this screen that allows me to select from a series of options. I can create a PDF from a single file. I can create it from multiple files. I can use my scanner, a web page, anything, something that's on the clipboard, or finally a blank page. I'm going to start with the single file option, and here it gives me a list of some of the choices I have, and I can click here on check more formats, and that actually takes me to actually just open up another screen. I'll just show you. It actually takes me to a help screen that gives me a list of other file types. So here you can see some different options here: email, messages, web pages, etc. So that check more formats just took me to the help. Now I'm going to click here on select a file, and it's going to take me to the files that I provided you with. And I'm going to, just for an example to start with, I'm going to choose summary doc. That's my Word document. I'm going to click open, and now you can see it gives me the file name, and it gives me a little preview of the file. I can go ahead and click create right at this point, or I can click the advanced setting option just to see what other additional settings are here. So you can see what it's going to do by these things that are checked. It's going to add bookmarks. So if in the Word document, and I'll be showing you the Word document in a few minutes, if I've used headings or styles, it'll actually create bookmarks from those. It'll add links to an Adobe PDF file if there's any links, and it will enable accessibility and reflow, which is basically allowing sort of the accessibility options that are available. Now, the PDF settings, I'm just going to leave it at standard, but you can see there's other options there. And for security right now, it's set for none, but I'm actually going to click here and I'm going to choose reconfirm security for each PDF, and then I'm going to click here on edit. And what I can do with this is I can actually set up a password ahead of time. Now, I don't want a password to open the document, but I do want to restrict the editing. So I'm going to click here on restrict editing, and then it says the password is going to be required to change it. I'm just putting in a password here that's simple that I can remember. I'm just putting in the word password. I wouldn't recommend that. I'd recommend a more secure password than that, but I'm just putting that in so it's easy for me to remember. And with that, unless I use the password, I'm not going to be able to print the PDF, and I'm not going to be able to make any changes. So if you're creating a PDF that you don't want anybody to be able to edit, if you're giving it to somebody who only has Adobe Reader, they won't be able to edit it. But if you give it to somebody that has the full version of Adobe Acrobat like we're using, they would be able to edit it unless you put the restriction on. So this is something that's really important to be aware of. There's other places you can go to do this, but I like to be able to do it right when I create the PDF. And then I'm going to go ahead and click OK on that. And it's just going to ask me to reconfirm my password. And then I'm going to click OK. So now I've set those settings, and I'm going to go ahead and click Create. Now you can see down here, it gives me a message that is starting the application which created the selected document. So if you're going to create a PDF from a Word document, you have to have Microsoft Word available on your computer, because it's actually starting the application in the background and it's creating the PDF for me. Now, it doesn't usually take this long. Just click OK there. Okay, so it's creating it, it's reading it, and then what it should do there, it's actually launched it. So it's launched it into, I'm now in, and because I added the password, this is how you know you've added the password, is the word secured is on there. So that's how you know this is now a secured document. And on the left panel here, I can still click these icons. This one lets me see the 4 pages I've created. This will let me see the bookmarks. So there you can see it actually created bookmarks based on all the headings that were in the document. If there were any links, these would show here. And then finally, if there's any signatures. So these options become available once you've created the PDF. So I'm going to just close that. And I didn't make any changes there, so I'm just going to say no to that. And I'll go back and I'll just show you that again now. So I'm going to go to create PDF again. Now, if I did multiple files, that would allow me to combine files directly, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, or I could create multiple PDF files, and that's going to allow me to convert multiple files at the same time. So it's a little bit of a time saver, where if I want to do that now with my remaining files, I could click Add Files, and then I'm going to choose the other 2. So this is going to allow me to create both of those at once. And what it's going to do by default is save it into the same folder, keep the same original names, and then it's going to add PDF to the end of it. And if there were any existing ones with the same file name, it would override them by default. If I wanted to, I could choose add to original file names, and I could choose what goes at the start of the file name or what goes after. I usually find that's not needed because it's going to keep the same file name and then just make it a PDF, but you do have that option to add more to it if you want. So I'm going to click OK. And again, it's actually starting the applications that created the file. So it's starting, first of all, it's starting in Excel, and now it's started PowerPoint. And it's actually showing me in PowerPoint as it creates it. Okay, and now it's left me in PowerPoint, so I'm just going to minimize that. I'm going to minimize Excel. And now when I get to this point, I just have to click up here in the upper right. I'm going to click close. And now it didn't actually open the file. So the difference there is when I created the PDF on the single file, it actually opened the file. But because I created two at once, if I now go to open, there you'll see I have analysis and I have overview. And I'm going to open those, and there's the two PDFs it's created. So these ones did not end up secured because I didn't set that option when I created it. So there's the two files, and it created the complete. My Excel spreadsheet actually had two tabs. It's created 2 pages for the 2 tabs. Now, something I'm just going to show you, just close those. I'll go back to that again for a minute. When I did the multiple files, actually with the multiple files, you don't have the ability to, looks like I don't have, yeah, so I have the output options, but it just goes ahead and it just creates. So that's the other advantage of going with a single file instead of the multiple files. I'll just stop that since we've done that already. If you go with the multiple files, you don't have the options, but if you go to the single, so if I now select that Excel spreadsheet on its own, if I now go to advanced settings, this option is the one that you'd want to make sure is checked so you could convert the entire workbook. So in many ways, it's actually better to do a single file at a time because then you have the option to go in and choose the security and the other options. So that's how you can create the PDF directly from within Adobe. But now what I want to show you is, I'll just close this screen. I'm going to minimize Adobe and I'm going to go to PowerPoint. And within PowerPoint, I'm going to open up my PowerPoint presentation. So you can see it's 8 pages long. And you can see there's titles at the top of each of the slides. Those are what the bookmarks are going to be based on when the PDF is created. So I'm going to get a bookmark called Report Overview. I'm going to get one called Global Tourism, World Travel, etc. So to create the PDF, because Adobe is installed, as soon as you install it, you automatically get in each of your applications, you get an Acrobat tab. So under the Acrobat tab within PowerPoint, I can go to Create PDF. And right away you can see it's taking me to the folder that I opened this from. It's going to save it using the same file name. And because View Result is checked, it's going to launch me into Adobe automatically. If I didn't want it to do that, I could uncheck the View Result. So I'm going to leave that checked. And the Restrict Editing, if I check that, that's going to allow me to put in the password. So same options that we had within Acrobat, you can do it in this area as well. So I put in my password. I'm going to click OK. It's going to ask me to confirm it. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Save. Now I had already created it, so I'll just say yes. And now down here you can see it's publishing. And again, you can see because I added the password, it's got the word secured up here. So those are the two approaches you can take. And sometimes it makes more sense if you're already in the application, creating the file, instead of going into Adobe just to create the PDF, to just directly create it within the application. So if I was in Excel, you can see there's the toolbar within Excel, and within Microsoft Word, let's get that open. Here you can see Acrobat as well. So you've got, it's available in all of your applications. Now, if you wanted further options, sorry, I'll just go back to my Word document. Also on the Acrobat toolbar, you have the Preferences tab, and this would allow you to set, there's a series of different tabs here you can go through to create more preferences, and the preferences vary depending on what your application is. So here you can see why it's converting the word headings into bookmarks is because that's checked. So these headings in this document, they are using the title and the subtitle, and then there's heading 1. So the heading 1s are what is actually going to become bookmarked in the final PDF. I'll just show you that with this one. Okay, so there's the PDF and there's the bookmark. So there's the bookmarks it created. So if when I was creating the PDF, if I wanted it instead to also include the styles, so if I wanted to include market summary and industry marketing vision, I would check that option. And you can see what's checked off now. So if depending on which of the styles you wanted to use, this is going to convert all of them into bookmarks. If you didn't want them all, you could uncheck the ones you didn't want. So there's where you see the title. So that one was title, and that one was subtitle. So those, if I just wanted those two, I could uncheck the others. Okay, so at this point, if you've got questions about that first section, so if you've got anything at this point about create PDF, please feel free to, if I haven't covered something there, if you've got a question about it, please type your question in the chat screen. And then I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is combined files. And you'll notice up here I have these tabs for the 2 files I have open. I'm just going to close those so the files aren't open. And now with combine, you can either click on it from tools here or on the panel over on the right. And when I go to combine, basically click add files, and I'm going to combine all 3 of those PDFs that I created into one. So I'm choosing all 3. And because they're password protected, it's going to ask me for the password. And there are my 3 files. So you can see up at the top, I have the combined files toolbar. And so it hasn't actually, they haven't been combined yet. At this point, I've just added the files. So at this point, if I decided I wanted to add another file to this, I could click here on add files, and that would take me back to my list of files. So if I wanted to add this one, the Form 15, that would add it at the end. If I want to preview the contents, when I hover over the thumbnails for each of the files, you can see there's 3 buttons that become available. If I click on this little plus sign, you can see there it lets me preview it. So that takes me into the preview. If I click again, it takes me back out. I can click on this one. So I'm just clicking off the page and that takes me back out. So if you weren't sure if you'd added the right file, you're able to click that preview button and see it. So you have to hover on the thumbnail before you can see the icon. Now notice that on these first 3, when I hover on them, there's also this icon at the top, which is called expand. That lets me expand to see that there's actually 2 pages in this file. This one I can expand and you can see there's actually 8. The summary's got 4. And then finally, the form doesn't have an expand because it's only 1 page. And at this point, if I decided I don't want that added, I can click the little trash can and that's eliminates it from the list. Now I'm going to go back here and expand the analysis. It shows me the 2 pages and I can change the order of those pages just by dragging them. So I can reorder them if I want. That's not going to affect the original PDF, but it does affect it in my combine. If I think I don't really need one of these pages, maybe this one I don't need, I can click the trash can. So it doesn't get rid of the whole analysis file, it just gets rid of that 1 page. So you can arrange the pages, you can delete them. I'm going to expand this one. If I want to say get rid of this graph and this one, you can see as I click the files, they become deselected, but I can use the control key to select specific pages to remove, or if I use the shift key, it does a whole series. So I can kind of use the control key to pick and choose, or if I click one and then hold the shift key on the last one, I can select the whole series. So let's just say it's these two graphs I want to get rid of. And then again, all I have to do, now you can see now when I have, because I've expanded it, there's no shortcut when I hover on them, but I can go up here to remove, and that got rid of the 2 pages. Okay, now when I'm ready to actually combine it, all I have to do is click combine up here at the top, and I now have one PDF, and you can see up here it's called binder. And if I click this page icon over here on the left, there I can see there's all the pages. Now at this point, I can save it and rename it, so it's called binder. I can just go up here to File, Save As, and oops, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I want to just put it right back in the same folder. So instead of calling it binder 1, I might, I can call it whatever I want. Let's say it's my annual report. Give it the appropriate name, and that is now a complete binder with all the files. Okay, and again, with that section, if you've got any questions, please type them in the chat panel. And then we'll move on to looking at organizing pages. Now, because I'm actually in a file now, if I want to organize the pages, instead of going back to Tools, over here on the right, I can use this panel, and I could go to Organize Pages here. Now, if this panel isn't showing, I'll just show you what happens. If the panel will always be there, but it might be collapsed, as I've just done now. This little arrow right here, if I click on that, that brings it back out. If I click the arrow again, the little triangle, it puts back in, but you get so you recognize the icons. So the organized pages, here's this little green one, and when I hover on it, you can see it tells me what it does. So I'm going to click organized pages, and it now takes me into another view that looks very similar to what it did when we were combining the original document. And I'll just stress that you don't have to have a combined document. I could do this in any of my multiple page PDFs. It doesn't have to be a binder. And basically you can click on the thumbnails to select them. You can use the shift key to select multiple pages. It selects everything in between. And as I showed you before when we were combining, you can also use the control key to pick and choose. If I wanted to copy a page, once the page is selected, I can hold the control key while I drag, and there I get a copy of the page. If I want to get rid of that, I can hit the trash can. If I just want to move the page, I can click and drag it. And then you'll also notice up here at the top, I have a series of different options, and this is particularly useful. I didn't expand on this in your handouts, but if I had combined this, and now let's say I want this first piece as a separate file, I can go up here to extract, and this option here, if I have delete pages selected, what extract is going to do, it's going to pull it out of this file and create a new file. So I don't want to necessarily delete it from this, so I wouldn't necessarily check that. But if you added it in here by mistake and you don't want it here, you could check delete, and it would extract it and then also delete it from here. And then if I want to extract as a separate file, I can check that, and that would be useful. Let's say if I picked both of these files, I've just pressed my control key to select this one, and so this is going to select both of these and extract them as separate files. So I'm going to go ahead and click extract, and here's the destination folder. It's going to, and I just basically, the folder is selected, and then actually let me try that again. There we go, and then okay, so it's telling me that the annual report 1 already exists. I want to override. I'm going to click yes, and then yes again. And now if I go look in the folder, so I use this create and edit folder. So what it did is it took, so my original file was called annual report, and it's extracted both of these, and it's called Sorry, just clicked on the wrong spot there. So back in the folder. So it's created page 1 as annual report 1, and the other one is annual report 3. So at this point, I could rename them something more appropriate, but it will by default take the existing file name and add the appropriate page number to the name of the file. Now I'm just going to close this, and I'm going to close my annual report. And I'm not going to save that. And I'm just going to go open up just the summary that I had. So this was you can see this is 4 pages. So I'm going to go over to organized pages here. And again, this one had a password. Okay, so you can see there's the 4 pages. I want to take this one and I'm going to extract. And I want to extract as a separate file. Okay, so it's telling me here that the pages extracted from a secure file will lose their security settings. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to choose create an edit folder. So the disconcerting thing here is there's no confirmation that it's done. And that's why I actually ended up doing it a second time, because I forgot it's not going to tell me that it's actually expanded it or extracted it. But if I now go into open, go back into that folder. So this was the summary file. And because it was the 4th page, it's called it summary 4. So if I actually now open that up, you can see I have a separate file. So at this point, I may now want to save this under a new name, and I'm just going to call it I'm just using the title that Marketing Effort 3. Okay, so again, with the extraction, you can do that with a binder, or you can do it with just a multi-page. You would do it obviously with a multi-page PDF, and it's just the main purpose of it is to create a separate PDF from the original file. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure this one is open. So I've got my summary open that I had secured with a password, and now we're going to go on to looking at edit PDF. So I'm just going to expand this panel on the right. So the edit PDF is over here on the right. And if I click on that, because this has a password, it's going to let me know I need to enter the password in. So this is, again, the main reason why I like to use the password is if I was giving this to somebody else and I didn't want them to be able to edit it by putting the password on, they're not going to be able to click edit PDF and make any changes unless they know what that password is. So that's kind of a key point to remember if you don't want people to be able to edit your PDF. Now, when I'm in the edit PDF, because this was a PDF that was created from a Word document, it is editable. And I'm just going to scroll up here to the very top. So you can see what it's done is it's put the pieces into text boxes. And if I want to make any change, let's say I don't want this heading, I can just highlight it like I would in a Word document, and I can delete it. And I can delete the space, and you can see the text is flowing within the panel here. I can go down here, I could delete this, and I can actually use my backspace key. Whoops, I did too much there. So if you end up erasing something you didn't mean to, Control Z is a way of undoing. So I backspaced a little bit too far. So you sort of watch when you're doing your editing that you're not getting rid of something that you want to keep. If I click outside of it, that cancels the editing. Now, notice I'm going to click up here. Now, I can't actually edit this text because it's not text. It's actually an image. So there's no way I can edit these words at all. That's one thing, but I can get rid of the whole thing. I can hit delete, and that gets rid of the whole text box. Again, if I didn't mean to do that, I can go up here and do undo, or I always just like to remember the keystroke. And now you can see I can bring that back. So these pieces are not text, but they can be deleted as well. So that's So everything is independent, and adding text into one text box will not push an adjacent text box or reflow to the next page. So if I added some text here, it would fill in here, but it wouldn't automatically go up here. So it's not quite the same as editing within a word processing program. Each one of these are sort of separate little pieces. So at this point, I can edit by adding new text. I can highlight text and delete it. You'll also notice that when the text box is selected, there's a little handle up here. That would allow me to rotate if I wanted to. You can see now the text is rotated. Again, that's something I can undo with Control Z. So I can rotate, and I can use some of these editing options over here. I could add bullets, or I could add numbers. So it does let me do take my paragraph and add to it. If I don't want, I just clicked it again, that took the bullet away. I can change the alignment. So I've now centered it. I can use right align, and I can fully justify. So there's some editing there I can do. I could highlight this text. I could make it bigger. So I would still do the majority of my editing in my original Word document, but this is just some, you can see there's some simple things you can do to change it once you come in here to edit. Now I'm going to close this, and I'm not going to save it, and then I'm going to also now show you what would happen with the Form 15 that I gave you. So this file is a scan, and you can see it's not a very good scan. It's quite pixelated. It's got some handwriting on it. It's got all these little dots. So it's not really a super clean scan. And I'm going to show you what will happen now if I click on edit for this. I'm going to click edit PDF. And you can see what it's doing is it's converting the scan page to editable text and images. And then you can see it says the text has been recognized in the language English UK. If I want to change that, I can click on scanned documents and settings. So I could change down here where it says scanned documents. I could click settings and change it from English UK to English US. So it just does a rescan. And now what I want you to realize with this is by default, only the current page will be converted instead of the entire document. But as this has only got one page, but as I scrolled through it, if I got to the other pages, the page in focus will be made editable. So it will do it'll recognize it as I get to the next page. So this is what we call OCR language that it's used, and OCR basically stands for optical character recognition. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's still if you only have the scanned document, it does at least give you the text, and then you can do some editing. So first thing that I can edit here is it's actually made a graphic of all these little dots in the background. So I can just click on this on the outside border here, and I can press delete, and now it's got rid of, so it's actually looking cleaner already. So I've got rid of all the dots in the background. I can click here and I can get rid of this page number. The original document had dots for the signing line. I could actually click and delete that. So you can see I can select the individual pieces and delete them. Now the only thing is that this is not, if I delete this, you can see it actually deleted the number and the check mark. And if I now type in a 6, you can see it's coming really big. So what I might want to do here is actually copy this 7. And see, even that's coming big. So I'd have to see that this is 11. So I'd have to do a little bit of adjusting. Actually, that should be the 6. So it's not perfect, but at least it helps you, it keeps you from having to actually type the whole thing. And this might be something, I'm not sure how this will look if we convert it, but we'll be talking about this in a little bit more detail just going to close this editing screen, and I'm going to go here to export. And just going to see what would happen if I took this now and exported it into Microsoft Word. Okay, so you can see it's not perfect by any stretch. So now you can see what it looks like if I actually convert it. But it is now, let's just zoom in so you can see this better. So it is actually, it's made individual paragraphs. Yeah, so this would be kind of ugly to work with. Just wanted to give you a sense of what it would actually do to, you can see it hasn't recognized that there should be a space there. So in some ways, if you were to edit this, it might be easier just to type the whole thing from scratch. But it does give you a sense of what, of at least, I always do this as an attempt. I see if I can convert it, and then either work with what it's converted or just start from scratch. Now, in terms of being able to edit any password protected PDFs, there is nothing you can do there if you don't know the password. And I'll just show you that again, just to confirm that. So the summary was one that I put a password on. So I know it's secured because I see the word secure here at the top. And if I go to edit PDF, the first thing it does is it prompts me for the password. If I canceled that, it tells me that this is secured and editing is not permitted. So there's nothing I can do if I don't know. So you can see I'm not going to be able to add any text. Every time I try and do something, it's just going to keep telling me it's protected. So the only way I'm going to be actually able to do anything is to put in the password. Now, you can see I put in the password, and I am now able to do some editing here. Just close that for a sec. So I can now click in here and I can say delete text. So it is letting me do it now because I knew the password, but it's still showing me secured here. So I haven't actually removed the security completely. I've only just taken the password off. So if I want to remove the password security after the fact, when the PDF is open, I need to just close from these editing tools, and where I would go is to this protect option. So if protect isn't showing here on the right panel, I can also access it under tools, and it's not in the create edit section, it's down here in the protect and standardize. So I could click on that, and now what it gives me up here at the top is the protect toolbar. And what I would do here is I would go to advanced options, and I would go to remove security. It would ask me to confirm, and now it still says it's secure, but once I have removed the password, what I basically would do now is I would just go ahead and save the file again, and now you can see the security is off. So you can't remove the password security though unless you know the password. Now we'll be covering more on that in the forms and signatures webinar, which will be in a couple weeks. But I just wanted you to see how you could work with that in this area here. So that was if there was password on the PDF. If the PDF has been signed or certified, again, the same thing, you will not be able to edit that once you've put in the digital signature, which again, we'll talk about in more detail in that webinar. Okay, so just a little bit more now about the editing. If I go back to the edit PDF, again, you can see up here, we've got a toolbar. So if I wanted to add any text, I could click here on add text, and then basically I would click anywhere in the document that I wanted to add the text, and this is added text. So you can see it's come in by default as Arial Black and size 12. And depending on what your default is, it might come in differently. So you have the ability of setting what that default will be in your, you've got some options for that. So where you go to set those options, if we go up here under the edit menu at the top, And if I go down here to preferences, so this is a screen that has all kinds of different options in it. And where I'm going to look here is under content editing. And when I get to content editing, you can see right in here, this is where it is setting the default font. So there's something called the default font, and there's something called the fallback font. So the fallback font is used for editing, and it says let Acrobat choose. You could go in there and you can pick a font. So that's by letting it choose, it should pick it'll pick the font closest to where you are actually editing. So it's not a bad idea to keep that option on. But the default font for adding text, you definitely might want to specify what that might be. Now I had Arial Black chosen here. I'm just going to cancel this for a sec. So let's see if I can see. If I go back to edit, I just want to see. So the font is Calibri. So I might, for this document, might want to set my default font to be Calibri instead. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to choose Calibri. I think I'm going to choose 11. Okay, so now when I go back to edit and then go to add text. Okay, so it is not, didn't keep what I did there. Let me just try that again. Okay, now it kept it. Okay, and then I'll go, there we go, there's my added text. So good idea to be able to specify that. I have to admit, I used this for a while before I took the time. It always annoyed me that it went in a weird font, and then I took the time to figure out how to do that. So it's pretty simple to do. It's just knowing that basically all of your preferences or any of your your options can be set in the screen. So it's worthwhile. We'll be going through a few of these throughout the different sessions. It's worthwhile to go through and see the different settings that you can set as preferences in there. Now, the other thing I'll just point out is that when I go with the add text, before I actually start typing, so I set the default by going into my edit preferences. I can, now that I've chosen add text, I can set the font, I can set all these different options before I actually start typing instead of changing it afterwards. But you can also change it afterwards just by selecting the text, and then again, your different options are over here that you can apply. Now, this particular document, as a footer, it's got the little airplane and the address at the bottom. So I'm actually going to close this for a minute. I'm going to go to Edit PDF, and I want to just delete that. So I'm going to delete the address, and I'm going to delete the little airplane on each of these pages. So in some cases, it's a separate text box. In other cases, it's part of a text box that's already there. Okay, so now that I have removed those pieces, what I'm now going to show you is I'm going to go here to header and footer, and I'm going to choose add. Now, it is still recognizing that there is a header or a footer. I'm going to say replace existing. And now for the footer, I'm going to go down here and I'm going to type the word summary. And then over here on the right, I'm going to click this button that says insert page number. So that's going to put the page number in. And I actually want it to have the word page. And you can see it shows me down here what it's actually going to do. And I can change the font here. So I've got Arial. I'm going to choose Calibri instead. So even though I'm in the summary, I'm in the left text, it's actually changed them both to be equal. And then I'm going to click OK. And now I have set my footer. Now, if I decide I want to make a change to that, I can go back to header and footer. I can go to update, and it takes me back in and it shows me what's there. And let's just say I want to get rid of that, and I want this to now be here in the middle. And again, you can see it's now changed all the pages. And it's putting the header and the footer on all of the pages. Go here to update. If I didn't want it to show on the first page, just looking for an option for that. There we go. Good. Okay, let's try that again. So I'm going to add. Okay, there we go. So there I got it on the, I didn't get it on the first page, but I have it on the others. And it restarted the page numbering. Like I didn't have it displayed on the first page, but it's calling the second page, page 1. So I think I would have to, I think that should do it there. Yeah, there we go. So now it's set it to, yeah, so if you, show you that again. So I went into update. So what I did is in the page number and date format, I set the start page to be 2, so it would start numbering at 2. So you go to the page range options to specify what pages you want numbered, and then you go here to specify whether you want it to restart at a certain spot. And then you've got different options in here as well. If I did page 1 of N, that's going to now that should have changed it to say page 2 of. There we go. Now the only problem there, let's see if I go back to update, is I now don't need the word page typed there. Okay, so there you have your header and footer. And if you want to be able to remove the header and footer after the fact, you just go up here, and as I did earlier, I can choose remove, and that'll get rid of it. Also up here on the toolbar, I have the option to go to watermark, and this is useful if you want to add, say, the word draft. So I'm just typing the text that I want there, and by default it'll be horizontal, but I can go down here to where the rotation is. I'm going to click this 45-degree option, and I don't want it to be black, so I'm going to click here on the black thumbnail, and I'm going to choose a gray. And by default, the gray, the opacity is 100%. I can grab this little slide here and I can adjust it. So this is making it a lighter gray. And it's going to appear on top of the page by default. I can choose to appear behind the page instead. So it just makes it, you can see, I'll show you that with it. So right now it's set to go on top. So you can see it kind of looks like it's covering it. Now if I go back to that and I would go to update to modify it, now I'll choose appear behind the page. And now you can see it goes underneath the graph. So depending on how you want it to look, you have that option. And then once the watermark is in, you want to remove it, you can go back to watermark and simply choose remove. So you can use any text at all that you want there when you add it. So you basically just type in there. So people use things like draft, copy, confidential, whatever it is you might want. And then you also have the option, if you wanted to put a logo in the background, you could go to File and Browse, and then you could choose an image to actually go in behind. So some people will use a logo or something like that. Now, if you want to create links, one purpose you might want to use for a link is if you wanted to create a table of contents. So I'm going to add a page here by going, I'm going to close from the edit for a moment, and I'm going to go to organize pages. And I have the first page of this document selected. I'm going to click here on insert, and I'm going to choose blank page. And I want it to be B4. So I'm going to click here on B4. So that's going to insert a blank page at the beginning of my document. And then I'm going to close from here. There I am on the blank page. And now I'm going to go to Edit PDF. I'm going to go to Add Text. And what I'm going to show you here is just how we could easily make a table of contents. So my first heading will be, market summary and plan. I think I can actually, can I copy that? Oh, sorry. Okay, so that text box ended up, oops. Okay, so I've used executive summary, and so this is not perfect. So I'm just using the tab key to go across, and I'm going to type in a 1, and then I'm going to press enter. So ideally, I would suggest creating the table of contents in a word processing program. It's a little bit easier, Microsoft Word. My memory is bad here. Competitive analysis is on the next page. Okay, so you can see all I'm doing here is I'm just typing the heading, and then I'm tabbing over and specifying what page it's on. So this would take a little bit of time to actually type in your text, but what I'm wanting you to see is once the text is there, you can now create a link to the appropriate page. So once you've typed the text and the desired page number, what the next step would be is to click here where it says link, and under link I'm going to choose add, edit, web, or document link. And then what I do is I drag around the page number, and then we've got these different options. I want to go to a page view. So when I have it set for go to page view and then click next, what I actually do now is I scroll to the page, the appropriate page. So there I'm looking at the page that has the executive summary, and I'm going to click set link. Okay, now I'm going to do that again. I'm going to go to link. I'm going to choose add, edit, document link. I'm now going to highlight the 2, leave it at go to page view, click next, and now I'm going to scroll down until I see the second page, and I'm going to click set link. So it's a bit tedious. I wouldn't do it for a really long table of contents, but you can see it is manageable. And once I've got that set, I can just click here on close on the right, and now there's my table of contents, and you can see I can click the 1. Now I go to page 1, and if I go back, I can click and go to page 2. So what I would suggest, it might be easier, is at least have the blank page already created in Microsoft Word with the heading and the number. It doesn't have to necessarily be a generated table of contents in Microsoft Word. You can just type it in, and then once you get it in here, then you can just set the links to the appropriate pages. Okay, and now the export PDF. This option is over here on the panel under export PDF, or it's under tools. purpose of this is to allow you to export a PDF in the desired format. So in this example here, I've got a Word document. I'll do this one. Oh, sorry. Let me just go back. And I'm going to open up this form PDF. We saw that what this did earlier, but I'll just show you from this point. So when you're in the file, you can click the export PDF, and then you specify what format you want to export it in. And it's defaulted to Microsoft Word as the first one. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to click export, and it is going to open the file after the export. I can go here to settings to specify settings ahead of time. And then the folder I want it to go in. So it starts giving you a message down here at the bottom, and then there it's actually opened up. So it looks pretty much the same as what it did before when I showed you this. So you can see I could do a little bit of cleanup here. I can get rid of the copy. I can get rid of this page number at the bottom. So it is now completely editable. There is a little graphic here. So there's pieces that I can click on to actually remove. So just want to caution you that depending on the source of the original document, so scans are not going to be perfect. But if it was originally a Microsoft Word document and then it was saved as a PDF, it will come in pretty clean, same as Excel, same as PowerPoint. So if that was the native format it was in, it should convert fairly cleanly. Just your scan images won't necessarily be completely clean. And let's go back to this. So back with this scan, the other thing we did look at with this is that as soon as you click Edit PDF, that's when it actually turned it into OCR. But the other way you can go is you can click here on the Scan and OCR option. And then what you have the ability up here to do is there are some options you can. So I'm going to go to in this file, and then you can see you can go to settings. So those are some of the same settings that we saw in the other screen. So I can do editable text and images. I can try and make it searchable, exact. And then basically what you do here now is you click recognize text. And what it will have done now is it's created a layer of text in the document that you should be able to now search. And how I could find out now if I could search is if I just go up here, edit find, let's see whether I can find the word affidavit. Yeah, there you can see it's found it. So what's interesting is it didn't find the first one because I've typed it in the lowercase. So if I now do okay, so what's interesting is even though I typed a capital there, so it's not finding this one. It's not recognizing, it doesn't recognize that one because it's a bit too fuzzy, but it is recognizing the other ones. So it's not going to be perfect, again, especially with a scanned image, but it is something that's worth trying. Now, if when you run the OCR on this, you can also get it to correct, you can try to get it to correct recognize text. So this is an option right here. And what it will do is you can get it to go through and so it basically, actually, let me just cancel that for a sec. What it should have done, yeah, so you can see it highlights the word and then it tells you what it's recognized at. So I'm going to review. So it goes through and it tells you what it's thinking it is. You can either accept or cancel. So so basically you're clicking in each of these little boxes. So it can be a little tedious, but at least you kind of you're being able to do a little preview of what it's actually going to recognize it as. And what it will also, so it will also, if it doesn't think there's, like, it'll give you messages if they're called suspects. So if it doesn't see any suspects, you'll get a message that'll say the document does not contain any suspects. So basically, once you've gone through this, you can, like, if I accepted it, obviously, yeah, so in this case, it's actually keeping. Yeah, so I'm just saying it lets me go through them one at a time to check them. Okay, and again, if you've got questions about that, you can type those in the chat panel. And you'll also notice at the very end of your handout, I've given you the sources of information for this. There's links to the help within Adobe. So each one of the specific topics that I've dealt with, if there's anything you want more detail on, you will see a hyperlink at the end of the document that gives you a source of where some of this information has come from. So we'll give you a little bit more detail on the different options. So that concludes today's session, which again was a focus on the create and edit. I would welcome you to join next week's session, which was going to be specifically on forms and signatures. And we'll be looking at these 4 options. And then the week following will be on share and review. And then the last week will be on protect and standardize. So thank you for attending today. And again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat panel, and Katie will pass those on to me, and I will try and get back to you later on this afternoon with an answer. So thank you for attending, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thanks.